And I think that for so long, people have been in a state of survival.
Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Come and Clean Podcast. This is your host, Peter O. Esteves. And today, we have none other than Mr. Adam Roa. Adam, the devotee of creativity. Hello, Adam.
What's up, Peter?
Welcome to Come and Clean Podcast. Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me, man.
You know, I want to do something different.
Okay, I'm all about different. Let's get creative.
Let's get creative. You are mostly, well, you're known for many things. For being an incredible creative. But your poem, You Are Who You've Been Looking For, it has hit over 200 million views across Gulf Coast and many other platforms. Mm-hmm. Why don't we start with that, and then we dive into who Adam Roa is?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's kick it off with some poetry. It's never
absolutely.
All right. This poem is called You Are Who You've Been Looking For, and I invite everyone just to take a nice deep inhale. Exhale. You are who you've been looking for. So stop looking for more unless you're looking in a mirror, because it's about time for you to see clearly that you are who you've been looking for. And that empty feeling you got, that hole in your chest, you only got that feeling because you think you're not blessed with everything you need. You see, we live in a consumerist society, which means they need you to buy stuff. And the easiest way to sell it is to tell you you're not enough. Buy this car, you'll get girls. Buy this bra, you'll get guys. And we're seeing it so much that we start believing these lies. But the truth is, the makeup they're selling to make you feel prettier is the same makeup you buy to stop feeling shittier about this lie they keep telling you that you are not enough. And what about the movies we watch, all the shows on TV? The more I watch, the more I see I need you to complete me. And yes, love is the answer, love is the key, but if you can't love yourself, how can you ever love me? And loving yourself, what does that even mean? Like massages and selfies and that sort of thing? Because the more I think about it, the more it feels weird. I've always thought self-love was something to be feared. I've been taught that arrogance is bad and vanity, it's not good. And even my bracelets are telling me to act how Jesus would. So what should I do? How should I act? I'm supposed to love myself, but how do I even do that? Well, I got a trick that I picked up from a friend who noticed that I was quick to defend her when she would say something negative about herself. She'd say, I'm so dumb, and I'd say, you're so brilliant. She'd say, I'm so weak, and I'd say, you're so resilient. And when she said, I feel ugly, and I said, you look beautiful, she asked me why I was so dutifully filling up her cup constantly and yet treating my own cup so irresponsibly. Because when I looked in the mirror, my voice was quite clear. You're ugly, you're too thin, your hairline's receding, and you got a pimple on your chin. And that was when she gave me a piece of advice that changed my life. She gave me a hug. And she said, treat yourself like someone you love. Wow. Treat yourself like someone you love. And now I had been standing, but I needed to be sitting because I couldn't believe that I had been letting myself keep forgetting that I was who I'd been looking for. And deep in my core, I knew it was time to stop looking for more until I could look through all my fear and look into a mirror and see clearly that the man looking back at me is the only one who can make me happy, and I am already enough. Wow. And I'm not any more special or unique than you. That's why I'm here to speak to you. You are already enough. And when you start to see that, you will start to be that. Your world will get brighter, your load will get lighter, and you can see that with life, you can be a lover, not a fighter. And that life, you deserve it. Because you are worth it. And there's no point in letting yourself keep forgetting, because no matter what you say or do, you are perfect. And so today, I hope I leave you with a direction correction away from the flaws you see in your reflection. They aren't flaws to me. They are simply protection against all the doubts you have of your perfection. Wow. So start today. Take a good long look in the mirror and say, I am who I've been looking for. Wow.
incredible, my friend.
Mm.
When did you find Adam Roa?
When did I find Adam Roa? That's a really good question. Of course, I haven't been asked that question before. I would say that the purest answer I have in this moment was when I had my spiritual awakening in 2013. January 2013 was when I feel like I came home to myself.
Tell us about that journey.
Well, I had gone through the most difficult year of my life in 2012. All of the different kind of pillars of my identity, whether that was my career or my finances or my physical health or my looks or whatever, all of it kind of crumbled away. I was hit down to a financial zero. I got into a car accident where someone ran a stop sign. I needed hip surgery. I was having migraines. There was just so much that was falling apart that out of pure desperation, I reached out to the only quote unquote spiritual person I knew at the time and said, I need an aura cleansing or some sort of magic, because it feels like I'm walking around this planet with a rain cloud over my head and I don't know what to do. And I got on the phone with her actually months later, or my friend said, I know exactly who you need to speak to, and gave me the number for this intuitive, a psychic basically. And months later, we're on a phone call and she's saying all this stuff about my lineage and angels and all of it. And I don't remember any of it. I can't tell you any of it right now. However, there was a moment in mid-sentence where she stopped. And she said, I don't know why, but they're telling me that you need to get into a Native American sweat lodge or drum circle as soon as possible. And I went, okay. And then she just went back to talking. But there was something about the frequency of her words in that moment that was so different that it stuck with me. And so I called up a friend and said, hey, I heard about that thing you did called ayahuasca, and I'm supposed to get into like a drum circle or something, and I don't know how to do that, but you told me that you sat with a shaman for this. Can you like connect me? 4 days later, I'm in an ayahuasca ceremony, not really knowing anything about it. And I sat that Friday night and that Saturday night and had a spiritual awakening. And I we were talking before this, I don't really like the term spiritual awakening. I feel as if it's overused and commoditized a lot. But I don't know a better term, because you don't know that you were sleeping until you wake up.
Wow.
And so I just was driving through the same neighborhood I was living in for years and going, how did I not see it this way before? And it was just like I woke out of a dream. And from that moment till this one, I feel as if my life completely turned in a different direction.
So, when you were reciting your poem, you were actually articulating today's society. Everybody hiding behind the veil of the makeup, the boobs, the societal acceptance, right? Why are you articulating that poem, describing today's generation like that? How did that inspiration, how was that born?
It's funny because that poem has now been viewed over 200 million times. Right. It's the second spoken word poem I ever wrote. I was at an event many years ago, and there were all these different speakers, and each one had 5 minutes, and they just went up there, and the last person to go was a slam poet. And I had never experienced slam poetry, for spoken word poetry. I'd never experienced it before. And when that person went, I had a lightning bolt moment, and I said, I can do that. I don't know why or how, I just know I can do that.
Was this after the ayahuasca experience?
This was after the ayahuasca experience.
Interesting.
Yeah, it just like awakened in me. And I went home and I wrote a poem within 24 hours. It's actually the first poem on my spoken word poetry album. I have an album called Permission. It's on Spotify. It's free. Anyone who wants to check it out. And there's a poem called Our Thoughts. And that was the first one that I wrote. And I was so excited. And I went over to a friend's house, and you know how it is where you have this new thing that you're excited to share, but it's very vulnerable, especially art like that. And I said, can I share a poem with you? And he's like, sure. And I shared this poem, and he went, wow, that's amazing. And my other friend said, your next one should be called You Are Who You've Been Looking For.
Wow.
And I went, okay. And he walked out of the room, and I said, sure, why not? This is a brand new thing for me. And I went home, and within 48 hours, I'd written this poem. You are who you've been looking for. And I feel as if I have spent most of my life trying to do what everyone else was telling me to do in order to be happy. You buy these things, get this amount of money, be varsity at sports, like just whatever it was, that is the thing that I would do to try and find happiness. And it wasn't until I went inward that I actually found happiness. And the thing about that is it's not like, oh, I went inward and all of a sudden I found bliss. It was like I went inward and found all of the shit that I was avoiding for so many years and that I was so scared to look at. And through the process of actually looking at that over time and years and years and years, and hiring coaches and attending retreats and plant medicine and just all of it, by looking at that stuff, then I was able to move it out of my system. And we as human beings are like corks in water. We don't need to try to be happy. We just have to cut away the things that are pulling us down. Wow. And we will naturally rise. And so by doing that process, I have arrived at this point where I can honestly say this is a period of my life I'm happier than I've ever been.
And you look happier than you've ever been. You're vibrant. You're full of energy and full of creativity. How do we get so conditioned? Where does that social conditioning come from? Where do we become what others expect of us?
Well, I think that that process starts because we have it's generational. First off, I think that when we don't heal, so there's this interesting study genetically where they found that you can find genetic markers in someone's DNA that shows if they're descendants from survivors of the Holocaust.
Absolutely.
Right? Mm-hmm. So what that tells us is that trauma, like deep trauma, is passed down in our very DNA.
Absolutely.
And so what that means is the stuff that I don't heal, I pass on to my kids. And so I think generationally, and that's in the DNA, but also generationally, that DNA and those wounds and triggers and limiting beliefs and whatever also become the mindset that gets passed down. And I think that for so long, people have been in a state of survival and fight or flight and just trying to survive on this planet. And that has been what's been passed down for so long. And we are moving out of that. I mean, when we look at world hunger, when we look at access to clean water, when we look at what poverty looks like now versus, 100 years ago, we are collectively starting to move out of that. And it's important for us to shift our mindset alongside what our external environment is now saying, because we're no longer needing to run away from wolves at night. There's no saber-toothed tiger in the bushes. Our fears and doubts and insecurities around survival now look so much different. How am I going to find fulfillment? How am I going to find happiness? How am I going to, find a job that I actually like and don't hate life? There's a lot of these sorts of issues so many people are facing. And because they don't necessarily activate the fight or flight responses in the same way, we don't talk about them. They're not talked about. They're not spoken about. I was raised, we talked about this, like I was raised by an immigrant from the Philippines, my father, and suck it up, man up, toughen up. He would say all the time, I came to this country with nothing and gave you everything. So you should be able to accomplish everything, 10x, whatever. You should cure cancer. That was the mindset that I had. And so as a result, no complaint, don't cry, don't show emotion, toughen yourself up. And that is then mirrored in our media. One of the reasons why I'm so passionate about art is because I believe that art is the highest leverage way that we shift human consciousness. And the reason for that is because even what I'm saying now, people listening on this podcast, they're listening through their logical mind because I'm speaking and they're going, do I believe that? Do I agree with that? Maybe. And if I say enough things that they agree with, they start to give me permission in a little deeper. And that's called rapport, right?
I love that.
But no matter how shut down you are, you go into a movie theater to watch a movie because how you think it's going to make you feel. You put on music because how that music makes you feel. art is a permission slip into someone's emotions, and someone's emotions is the permission slip to actually shifting their life. Because every real change that you have happen in your life, every moment of expansion it comes hand in hand with an emotional expansion. It needs to happen on an emotional level to rewrite our brains. And so I think art is the way that we do that. And right now, art has been used for so long to tell us we're not enough and to keep people in fear. And as a result of that, keep us easily controlled. No.
I love it. So there was another form of social conditioning, right? Through the art, through something that we can relate to and gravitate to. But where do we find the balance? We're running away from the wolves, okay? Now we're running into our demons, okay? And we're running into the demons that we're creating ourselves, right? The social pressure of being accepted, okay? So where is the balance, and how do we find the balance to be able to find an equilibrium to live a healthy, present life?
I think that the thing that I say around this that's most important is letting people know that whatever they're feeling, it's worthy of being felt. That's so important, because I think so much of the suffering on this planet right now.
So it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah, exactly. I think so much of the suffering right now on the planet is the result of people feeling depression, feeling sadness, feeling anger, whatever, and thinking that they're not supposed to feel those things. That the fact that I've battled depression. I've been very open on my podcast and my YouTube channel around my depression that I dealt with for so many years. And one of the biggest struggles I had was thinking that I was not supposed to feel sad. I had all of these blessings.
Sure.
I had all of this stuff. So even talking and telling people, hey, I'm really struggling right now, I had resistance to doing that because I felt like then I was complaining or I was ungrateful. And I feel like I want people to understand that what you're feeling is worthy of being felt.
Right.
And then the next step of just acknowledging what you're feeling, take that first opening of, okay, what they say in recovery, right? The first step is admitting you have a problem.
Absolutely.
So surrendering to this is what I'm experiencing, and let go of the judgment. This is the truth of where I'm at. And then how do I feel those emotions and process those emotions in ways that don't cause harm to myself, to other people, or to the planet? And from there, we go down the journey of moving the emotions through our system. And I think that is what you're talking about. It's the facing off with our demons, but they're the demons that we've created into demons by resisting them and repressing them and suppressing them for so long.
Sure, they become monsters.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. Adam, a couple of things you said. There's a lot of contradicting messaging that we get out there. Mixed signal messaging. Even in the personal development space, when we are taught that we are not our feelings, but we are not our thought, and we are not our thoughts, but we are not. What we are not told is that we still need to process the feelings, and we still need to process our thoughts, right? Mm-hmm. We need to bring it out to the surface in order to remove the power.
Yeah.
And you've done a lot of that work. But what is a practical way of being able to dismiss that in a way that you know that there exists, you face them, but then you're able to move on?
Yeah, I think it's like a bee sting, right? That you get a stinger in your arm, you get stung by a bee. You are not the bee sting. You are not the stinger, but it's there.
Yeah.
So take it out of your arm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Same with the emotions. It's like, you're not your sadness. You are not your anger, but it's there. So to pretend it's not there is just going to fester and get infected, basically.
Right.
And I think the path for me, as a devotee to creativity, I think that the path of our highest evolution, biggest growth, and most sustainable path to happiness is through creativity. I believe that your creative energy is the purest expression of your soul. Plain and simple. It's the reason why if you and I right now were to write a poem about love and just say, okay, you only get 10 lines, it'd be 10 completely different lines. If we were to say, let's draw a picture of a guitar, it would look completely different. If we said design an app, design a program, do this, whatever, any of it would be completely different, because our creative energy is completely unique to us. It's the thing that makes every human on this planet unique. And so as it moves through you, there's no frequency, there's no energy that is more healing to you than your unique code moving through your body. And so as you do that, it is healing to you, and all of your stuff will come up. This is not avoidance. This is not putting your head in the sand. The moment that you say, I want to start this new business, I have this new idea. The moment you say, I want to start singing or write a poem, all of the parts of you that think you're not smart enough, talented enough, good enough, etc., will rise to the surface.
The doubts pop up.
The doubts will pop up.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go looking for the doubts. You don't have to go looking for the fears. Decide what you want to create and bring to the world, and those things will come up. You'll deal with them. You'll look at them, but you're on the playground of creativity afterwards, as opposed to what I did for so many years, which is, what's the next thing that I can spot that's wrong with me, and let me go find it and try and fix it. And that is not sustainable. It's not fun. It's exhausting.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, in society that has been so conditioned, they look at you and me and say, they're too woo-woo. You know, they're too new age. They're too, you know, they've been doing too much ayahuasca. They've been doing too much of something, right?
Yeah.
But you're doing actually that work for children through your Surrender Artists, right? Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about that, and how does the art help the children in order for them to be prepared to not have to go through the journey that you have been through?
Yeah, thank you. Surrendered Artists is really near and dear to my heart. It's a nonprofit that I started a couple years ago. surrenderedartist.org. And our primary mission on this planet is to help teach kids how to use art as a healing technology in order for them to process whatever comes up. And this is really personal for me because I was molested at the age of 5, and that was a repressed memory until I was 30 years old.
Wow.
So I walked through this world being unconsciously affected by an event that I couldn't remember for 25 years. And I believe that had I had, like, the reason that was repressed is because my consciousness said, you don't have the tools to deal with this. This is too much. And so we're going to lock this away until we feel you're ready. And I feel like if I'd had the environment around me where I felt safe enough to share that or to be helped, or if I'd had the tools to support myself during that time, it wouldn't have had to stay hidden for 25 years of my life. And so I want to make sure, I love the idea, we all know that saying, hurt people,
sure.
Right? I love the idea of just stopping hurt people from hurting people. That's amazing, and I'm going to continue to work towards that. And not sure how long that's going to take. So in the interim, how about giving tools to people who are being hurt to process that? And I feel like art has saved my life in that, and I feel like I can feel myself getting emotional in this moment, actually, because without the first one for me was acting, and then it became writing and poetry, and without it, I don't know where I'd be. And I feel like when it comes to art, there's a permission slip to just let it go, because you can say things and you can get away with saying things that you may not be able to just write as an essay. You can have freedom where people aren't worried about your grammar or this or that, because it's poetry. Like, do whatever you want. Or it's a song, break the rules. And so giving people the freedom to just express what's going on inside of themselves, I want to give kids that opportunity so they don't have to move through life with something like I did and not have a way of processing.
Besides giving that through your foundation, what is it that the school system or our institutions can do to support the children in order for them to become more open and become less vulnerable to prey?
It's a really great question. When I'm asked that around the education system, what is the one thing that I would shift? I would be teaching emotional intelligence to kids in school. I would be teaching children how to acknowledge their emotions, communicate their emotions, and process their emotions in healthy, supportive ways. That would be the number one thing that I would shift. And I think that anyone who's listening to this, who's in the education system in any way, shape, or form. My mom was a teacher for most of her life. And I know how in a lot of school systems, the teachers don't even really receive support, for some of those things. I saw my mom go through that. And I think that anyone listening to this, just teaching kids how to communicate what they're feeling. So much of what we're seeing on the planet right now by adults is because these are adults who have felt like they haven't had a voice.
Absolutely.
They haven't had a voice. They've been silenced. They've been told they don't matter. They've been told to shut up. They've been told that to be a man, you can't voice your emotions or whatever it is. They've been told that because they're a woman, they're too emotional. So like whatever it is. And so we have a planet full of people who want a voice. And as a result of that, are just taking it and they're just screaming it. They're just like word vomiting a bunch of nonsense out into the world. But I understand that it comes from so many years of feeling like they didn't. And so if we can teach people how to feel like they are seen and they are heard and they are loved, if we can teach that to people from an early age, they don't grow up into adults who feel like they need to lash out for attention.
Absolutely. And I want to elaborate on that a little bit more, because you talked about, your revelation at the age of 30 years old, discovering, having this suppressed memory come back to you, remembering that you had been abused as a child. I was abused as a child. I was abused by my older brother for many, many, many years. And I came from a very dysfunctional background. And although I had achieved very, very incredible amount of success at a very young age, I always sabotaged my success. Because and this goes to your point of emotional intelligence, because I kept taking that 6-year-old abused little boy into the boardroom, into the marriage, into the partnership, into the friendship, into the relationship. So I was embodying a 30 or 40-year-old man with a 6-year-old mindset. And we can't do that. And by being able to teach people how to feel, how to touch, how to be, okay, we are giving them their voice. We are giving them their identity. We are giving them their humanity, which many a times is taken away from us by the repressed memories that you were talking about. Tell us who you are today. What are you working on besides the acting, the things that you are known for, the poetry and everything else?
Yeah, well, first, I just want to say thank you for sharing that, with me and on your platform. This is how we heal, right?
Absolutely.
Just making it something where we can talk about that.
Absolutely.
And so I just want to take a moment and say appreciation, because
thank you.
There are so many people that won't speak about that kind of
thing.
And I would say that, who am I now? For me, it's all about creativity, because I do believe that this is the path of growth that is sustainable. It's fun, it's playful. We need more people on the planet that are having fun and are not ignoring their shadows or their demons. They're facing off with them too, but creating from that place. And as a result of that, everything I do comes from that lens. I have an online community called Create, the collective renaissance of education, art, transformation, and entertainment, because I believe that we are in a complete renaissance. We are in that. And I have this personal development community, thecreatecommunity.com. It's every person I know, like yourself, that is incredibly successful, and someone who's not just successful financially or anything like that, but also is living their best life, is someone who's committed to personal development as a lifestyle. And so my online community is meant to be that. It's about how do we develop a community around personal development and growth. And we cover things like relationships and sexuality, business and finance, and creativity and self-expression. We do those 3 categories because those cover most of what's going on, and bring in some of the world's best facilitators to teach on that every week. We integrate as a community, and we do it through fun and play and creativity.
Tell us a little bit about each one of those categories and the importance of each one of those categories.
Well, the first one's relationships and sexuality. I think that, first of all, they're linked. Sexuality is one of the most misunderstood and vilified aspects of the human experience. Whether that's women who are shamed for their sexuality or simply objectified for it, or men who are told that they need to sleep with as many women as possible to be a man, or who are vilified for their sexual energy causing so much hurt and pain and damage. Sexual energy, sexuality is a topic that I think is just so important that people really...
Let's talk about that a little bit. So what is the right balance?
What is the right balance?
Yeah, what is the right balance of sexuality?
Well, I think it's different. It's going to be a little different for everyone, because everyone's sexuality is their own kind of unique relationship. And I think that it starts by detaching our sexual energy from the opposite sex.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is, as a man, for in my experience, I grew up where when I felt sexual energy in my body, all I knew was I need a woman here. I either need to have sex with a woman or masturbate to a woman through pornography or whatever it is, or like there needs to be some sort of release of some kind. Right. Sexual energy, release. Sexual energy, release. And sexual energy is life force energy. It is the energy of creation of life. Absolutely. And it is therefore your abundance energy. It is your vitality. There's so much there. And I think specifically for men, we're not taught how to harness it. We're not taught how to cultivate it and circulate it in our systems and use it for things outside of release and release through a woman in some way. And so that becomes something where it's either a necessity, a conquest, or a codependency. And so learning how to be in right relationship with our own sexual energy, sovereign of the opposite sex, and this applies to women too, not needing the validation of a man for your sexual energy, not needing to be sexualized to feel sexy, and not needing to use sexual energy as a way of getting what you need or want, and learning how to be with that as well. If we can develop our own relationships with our sexuality and our sexual energy without needing the opposite sex, now we can enter into a healthy dynamic with the opposite sex around sexuality. And that will shift so much on this planet, and create better relationships. That's why they're tied together so much.
So that's one area. And the other area?
Business and finance.
Okay.
This is about helping people really understand how to generate income for themselves in ways that are sustainable and enjoyable, and redefine what success actually is for themselves. Because I'm sure you know, probably even more than me, millionaires and billionaires who are incredibly unhappy.
Oh, absolutely. There's many of them.
There's so many of them.
Yes.
And so it's funny because when we talk about that and say something like that, often no one believes you. They're like, well, it's easy for you to say, you got money or you got fame or whatever it is. Yeah. The only people who can tell you that money won't buy you happiness are people with money.
Absolutely.
And Absolutely. So listening to those stories and recognizing that, okay, so what is success to you, and how do you generate the income and the business and the opportunity for yourself to be successful and therefore be happy. And so that can move us out of this fight or flight survival and into Maslow's hierarchy of needs, into a higher level where we can be focused on other things. And I think that's a really important piece and is often overlooked in the new age spiritual community.
Absolutely. But because I think that we correlate success to money, right? And we don't correlate the fact that money is actually energy.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
So when we leave that component out, we only think of the money factor and what money can do, and then it ties back to the old beliefs, right? Mm-hmm. The greed, the power, and all the other stuff that have a negative connotation. Instead of focusing on the fact that money is an energy, and it's just a trading commodity.
Yeah,
okay?
Yeah. If I give you $1 million cash and said you got to keep it in a bedroom, you can't do anything with it. That's no good to you.
Absolutely.
That's like money itself is no good to you. It's what you want to do with the money and what you think that money will actually bring to you. And so focusing your manifestations on money itself is actually just like focusing on a middleman. Focus on the lifestyle that you want. Focus on what do you want to feel? What do you think it'll be? Is it more travel? Is it more adventure? Is it more freedom to do creative projects? Like what is it that you think money is going to provide? And how can you incorporate more of that into your life now? Because like attracts like. That's the law of attraction.
Absolutely.
That's magnetism. And so when you start to live in that energy, more of it's going to attract itself to you. So business and finance is that second category.
And the third category?
Creativity and self-expression.
Okay, talk about that.
Yeah, I just, what I
said.
Man. Well, I feel like I'm really blessed where, the vast majority of my income since 2013 has come from one-on-one coaching. Mm-hmm. And I've worked with very high net worth individuals. And most of them, when they get to that point, where they have all the money in the world and they have successful businesses and they also have the confidence of knowing if they wanted to start a new business, they could. They understand how it works.
Sure.
They want self-expression. They want creativity. They want to feel like they're leaving a unique stamp on the world. They want to feel like they're doing something. I mean, even like your shoes. And like right now, I love your shoes. I know they're on camera. But because that to me is self-expression.
Sure.
There's something about that tells me so much about you and your willingness to like add a little flavor, just a little bit. And the fact that it's words, it's like, there's something so special about that. And I think that we all hit that point where we were talking even just a second ago about people wanting a voice. Well, we have it through our self-expression, and when we choose to own it and take it. And so helping people cultivate that in ways that really light them up, because so many people grow up thinking that creativity and self-expression is not a healthy thing, or it's a waste of time, or that they're not good at it. They were told by their parents they're not a good singer or whatever it was.
Sure.
And they shut down. And so seeing people activate that aspect of themselves is one of the most rewarding things for me. And so like those are the three pillars of the Create community. And that's one of the things I'm most passionate about. That.
And you Create Community Days have an event coming up. Tell us a little bit about that and what does that entail, and if there's a charge, or tell us about it.
Yeah, June 25th, 26th, 27th, we are doing a 3-day online festival.
I love it.
And so we are going to bring in experts in those three categories. We're going to bring experts in I'm blessed to have some of the best facilitators in the world as friends who basically I call up and say, hey, can you do me a favor? Come talk at this thing. And so they're coming in, and each of them is going to get an hour and just pour in so much wisdom and love into people, and do it as a kickoff, because we've taken a summer break from the membership aspect of my community. We were going for like 14 months, and then we took a couple months off, and we are relaunching the membership. And so this 3-day online festival with some of the world's best facilitators, and the relaunch of the membership is happening June 25th, 26th, 27th. You can go to createfestival.com or thecreatecommunity.com.
And all of that will be available in the show notes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So tell us about the Deep Dive podcast with Adam Roa.
You're hitting these things. You can tell I get lit up. I love what I do, Peter. I love what I do.
And I know you do. You are definitely a devotee to creativity.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, the
title well earned.
Well, the podcast for me is I share. There's 3 different things that I'll share on that podcast. One is just me by myself doing what I call these musings, where I'm talking about what I'm learning in real time. Whether that's what I've learned from dating, since I wasn't single for 13 years, and now being single for the first time in my life is like, wait, how do I date? I feel like 40-year-old virgin a little bit. And so like sharing those learnings and lessons just from me and a microphone and video, because I share it on my YouTube channel. But also I'll sometimes share new poems and new poetry there. And then the third thing is I bring in guests. And what we do on the podcast is I ask an unanswerable question and we explore it together. So rather than like interview style, this week's last episode was, are men to blame for all of the world's problems? And I did that with a friend who leads men's circles, and we explored that. And like just that question, like let's just explore that. Yeah,
are we?
Well, you got to listen to the podcast, Peter.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
And I will say that in some ways, like depending on how you view it, and based on that conversation, you could say yeah. You could say yeah. And it's much more complex than that. And so the exploration, the thing is, I think that so much of the planet is, everyone's focused on getting a universal agreement. And I think if we just focused on universal acceptance,
wow,
that would be such a massive shift on the planet. Because to think that even 50 people in one room are going to agree is insane. Yeah. Now you talk about 300 million in the United States. Now you talk about 7 billion on the planet. Mm-hmm. If you think you're going to get everyone to agree, and that's what world peace looks like, I think you're barking up the wrong tree. But if you can start to figure out how to disagree and yet hold compassion and love and acceptance in your heart, that's the world that I want to live in. It's going to be much more interesting, much more fun and diverse anyway. And so my podcast is a way to have these conversations about really these questions that could be a little triggering to some people, but just seeing how we navigate those conversations in a compassionate, loving way, and exemplifying that so that people can sit around with their friends or their family members and have these conversations about religion, politics, sex, our past, our wounds, our traumas, and not make it a space of judgment and needing you to agree with me in order for us to have peace.
Well, we're kind of moving that way, aren't we? We're kind of moving that way to where taboo conversations that perhaps were not had many years ago. Same-sex marriages, legalization of marijuana, psychedelics, microdosing, whatever, right? Are we not moving more that way as a society? Even through the platforms that social media that has created a voice for everyone?
I think we 100% are. And thanks to people like you. Thanks to people like you who are having these conversations on technological platforms like a podcast and sharing it out into the world. People like yourself who are leading the way in that is so exciting for me. And I know you're an older generation than I am, and that's actually even more exciting to me because it shows that it's not just the younger generation.
Absolutely, Adam. And excuse me for interrupting, but I didn't want to be my father. I love my father, and I'm very grateful for the sacrifices he made for me, for my family, but I didn't want to be my father. I wanted to be me. And I also wanted to be able to be relatable to my son. I wanted to be able to have, I cannot really honestly tell you that there was a particular moment that I was either eager to see my father, and I don't mean that with disrespect, okay? I'm just talking about my generation. We were so closed off. We were so distant, so close and yet so separated, okay? There was no feelings of emotions, yet there was a lot of perversity. There was a lot of dirty little secrets. So there was never a moment that I felt a closeness, okay, or that I wanted to be like him. And I questioned that. I questioned that, growing up. What was it? What is that? What was that footprint or that thumbprint that he left in me that I didn't want to repeat? Okay? And of course, there's years of work of, to be able to discover that. But I also wanted to be relatable to my son. And I wanted to be relatable to the generation because my time, our time, your time, my time, everybody's time is passing, right? But what kind of world are we living? If we don't understand the generation behind us, then we have not accomplished anything. Okay? Because the only way to be able to contribute to our generation after us is to be able to understand what they want to see, so we can support it, so we can create the path, and then let them move along the way. Get out of their way. Let them move on. That's why there's this passion for me to be able to create a platform where I'm able to allow this kind of conversations to happen. When I talk about them, when you talk about them, our stories are not unique. They're just stories of many. But we give people permission to open up to their stories.
How old is your son?
My son's 21.
21. And do you feel like you have a completely different relationship?
Completely different relationship. My son talks to me about sex. My son talks to me about his girlfriend. My son talks to me about whether he smoked marijuana, they smoke marijuana. Are you kidding me? You think I would have told my dad I even thought about smoking marijuana? I mean,
and it's been that way the whole time, since he was
I made a commitment with my son very, very early on. And I told him this, I never forget. I cannot even tell you how old he was, maybe 2, maybe 3 years old. There's only one agreement between, you and I. There's no secrets. We tell each other everything. Okay? And I went on, I kind of conditioned him very early on. So what's our agreement, son? There is no secrets. Because I came from a generation, a family of many secrets. And we are seekers of secrets, right? So there was, our home festered a lot of incestuous, negative energy, okay? And that I wanted to break. I didn't only wanted to break it for my son. You talked about something earlier that I completely agree with you is that generational trauma that stays in our DNA, I broke it.
Yeah.
It's gone. My son will not carry that. His children will not carry that. Okay? There has to be somebody first at something everywhere. Well, I want to be the first in that, breaking those curses. So that's why I create this platform. That's why I give people like yourself and others. And I'm grateful for individuals like you that are willing to share your story with such a passion and such a conviction that allow not only our listeners, but future guests to come in and share theirs. And that's the purpose of platforms.
Yeah, I think that's all we're doing is just giving each other permission.
Absolutely.
Like that's it. When I think about coaching, all I'm actually ever doing is giving this person permission to feel what they haven't wanted to feel or felt safe to feel, to express what they haven't felt safe enough or empowered enough to express. Yeah, like we are giving each other permission, and I love hearing that. I'm very much looking forward to becoming a father. I don't know. I'm single for the first time in my life, so I feel like I feel like I'm further away from it than I've ever been, and yet I feel like it's one of the most powerful ways that we can impact this planet is through the work that you're talking about doing, and by ending this cycle of ancestral wounding and ways of being, and now exemplifying a new way of being on the planet through your relationship with your son. That's really special. So thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Your biggest lesson from your spiritual awakening?
My biggest lesson from my spiritual awakening. Well, I have it tattooed on my arm. Embrace the shadows.
Wow.
And I think that means love yourself fully, because so long I was trying to love the parts of myself that I liked and leave behind everything else.
Wow.
And what we do is we make a ball and chain out of our shadows, out of all our fears and doubts and guilt and blame. All of that becomes a ball and chain that's holding us back from actually moving through the world as a whole, healthy, embodied, empowered individual. And so by embracing the shadows, we love them back into wholeness, because that's the only way they go anyway. The shadows don't even exist without the light, right? Literally, our shadow doesn't exist without the presence of light. And it's just something that we need to shine the light of our awareness on and find out, okay, how has that served me? How has that supported me into this exact moment where I no longer need it? And then I can love it for what it's done and let it go. And then that unlocks more light within my system, because that space that was previously taken up by the shadow is no longer needing to be there. And so embracing the shadows for me was the first lesson I got in that first ayahuasca ceremony.
Wow.
And I tattooed it on my arm, so I would always remember that. So that would be my answer.
And your biggest lesson for 2020?
My biggest lesson for 2020 has been, I'm in it right now. So I was going to say the creativity piece, really coming more into a deepening around creativity as my life's devotion. And what I'm in right now, the freshest thing as of like several weeks ago, is a re-understanding and redefining of what faith means to me, and to be a man of faith. And I always thought that faith was either, and I'll use God, but I mean spirit, source, Allah, like whatever word works for you. But you either believe in God and then you have faith, or you don't, and then you don't have faith.
Right.
But that was just actually like for me a primitive understanding of faith. That's the spark. Believing in God, believing in spirit, believing in something, which I believe we all do at some degree, because we are carrying the fractals of creation itself. We are a part of the everything, and therefore the everything is a part of us. So there's a spark there of belief, and I can say, I believe in God, and therefore I have faith. Now, through my prayer, my devotion, my actions, and how I live my life, I develop a relationship to God, to spirit. And as a result, I strengthen my faith. And I was going so long with faith, but not strong faith, not unshakable faith in the way that I wanted to. And I was seeing people who had it and they were triggering me. And so that was like the thing where if you see someone who's triggering it in you and you're like, oh, I don't know what that is, often it means there's something in you to look at. And for me, it was, I was unconsciously aware that they had a strength of faith that I envied.
Wow.
And so by learning that faith is something you strengthen through developing a relationship to God, that shifted my whole view on faith. And so as of 3 weeks ago, I am now recommitting to a deeper level of faith. And that's what the rest of my 2020 is going to look like for me, is what does that be? How do I become as a man of faith with deeper levels of it? I'm excited for that.
I love it. I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
Close us up with the poem.
Another poem.
Absolutely.
Let's see.
Something from spirit.
Okay. Never be ashamed about doing the best you can, no matter the results. Because the best you can is the best you are, a body on the outside, inside the dust of stars. Yes, we are stars in bodies, becoming stars embodied. And while some may choose to focus on the shoddy workmanship, I choose to focus on all the work one did to be the person sitting here today. All the hurt you've overcome, all the battles lost and won, while consistently traveling around the sun and persistently unraveling and coming undone, and intermittently understanding that you are the one. This is all for you. The who, the what, the where, the when, the why, from the day you're born until the day you die, all the different skin you've worn and the lives you've tried, all the laughs you've laughed, all the cries you've cried, all the times you've been lost and all the times you've been the guide, learning that the love you seek is the love you hide. Ever present, effervescent, that love will rise and remind you of the truth that simply cannot be denied. That if you look close at your reflection, you will see God's eyes.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Mr. Adam Roa. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Peter. Thank you, everybody.